Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and we are back this week for another Joe on Joe Illustrated, where we're diving into the G.I. Joe Real American Hero magazine, this time from spring of 1987. Welcome, all you new listeners. This is the podcast where I've covered every episode of the G.I. Joe Real American Hero cartoon. We did the DIC. We covered Extreme. And, and I worked my way through all of the Real American Hero comic books from Marvel. Now we're working our way through some of the printed ephemera from the era. In this case, the magazine. I've gotten about halfway through the how to draw G.I. Joe stuff, which I'm going to be revisiting shortly. And, we covered half of the G.I. Joe 3D. So I kind of bounce around a little bit every once in a while. So if you're new to the show, check out the archives. Go to, they shouldn't mostly be on your podcast feed, or you can always go to patreon.com/JoeandJoePod, and there's a full history of the archives there. You sign up there and help support the show, be a member, appreciate that. If you're online and you just want to say hello, you can reach me at JoeandJoePod at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com, like listener Theron did. Theron, thank you so much for that lovely letter. I really appreciate it. Rebecca appreciated Toilet Teal herself. I read it to her, and she thought it was awesome. So, and I know you're listening in arrears, so I'll send you a reply too. But if you do hear this in like 2 years, when you finally get caught up to all the episodes we've done, you're gonna love it. I was counting. I think, gang. I'm close to 400. I know I'm close to 400. I think I've gone over 400. I think I lost count at some point. But it's a lot of podcasting. So the whole journey's been a lot of fun, and it wouldn't be worth it without you guys. It wouldn't be possible without you guys. So I appreciate all of you listeners. This also wouldn't be possible without our great sponsors, the Movies and a Meal podcast. They're talking movies, they're talking meals, and they've got great coverage of pretty much everything that's happening, and pop culture and things like that. What did we see? Last week we talked to Alien Romulus. I didn't get to the movies this week. I didn't see anything this weekend. I wanted to go see The Crow, but not because I wanted to see The Crow. I wanted to see the mess. I don't want to prejudge it, but I love the original Crow. I know a lot of you guys are my age. Man, that first Crow movie was amazing. Brandon Lee and his tragic death and just the soundtrack. And I saw that movie. I was like, I think we saw that movie 4 or 5 times in the theater. So much. Love this. Burned that soundtrack. Burned a hole through the CD is what they like to say. So I'm an old school Crowhead. So I'm very nervous about this new one. I'll probably will go see it, but it didn't look like it did very well. And I'm sure our friends over at the Movies in a Meal podcast will check that out. So they'll give you their opinion as well. And then G.I. Joe stuff this week. What did I do? Oh, I got a great purchase from the 3D Joe's eBay auctions that they've been doing. I ended up snagging the Tomax and Zaymot card back in mint condition. I'm very excited about that. Been doing the show for 8 years. And you remember things you forget, your things, you don't, whatever. And I had for the longest time completely forgotten how cool the card back was for Tomax and Zaymot. And I'm the one, if you guys can picture it, you know what I'm talking about. If you can't, it's because they were twins. It had the reflective mirrored background, and it was kind of like a half open box, and it had these beveled mirrors on it. So it was like they were looking in the, mirror image of each other. And it's just a cool looking box. And man, I forgot what that looked like till maybe a couple years ago. I randomly saw just a, carded shot of like those guys mint in box, because you see them everywhere, but I hadn't thought of their box in forever. Or card back, really. and it ignited something in me. I don't know if you guys as collectors, if you're like this, but sometimes there's just something that sparks sparks joy, or whatever. But like as a collector, like you get it in your head, like if you're in a Masters of the Universe, and then all of a sudden you see some of the mini comics, you're like, man, like I really need to get all those mini comics. I haven't gotten that. So you go down that route as a collector. You know what I'm talking about. I've done this with comics a million times, and this is how I am when it comes to toys too. I don't have a super comprehensive collection, but like I'll get an idea for something. I'm like, man, I really like that. And so I've had this in my head that I really, really like them. And looking at actual carded ones, so the actual original unopened versions, those are expensive. So I'm very happy with this purchase from Carson. Got it in the mail. It looks great. I'm gonna do a little diorama thing, get a little display case. It's gonna look awesome. But yeah, that was a fun little collector thing this week. I was very pleased with that. And so also in this collector G.I. Joe experience and joy, after last week I realized, okay, well we're gonna do Spring '87 magazine next week, and I checked out the ones that I have, and I knew I was missing a few, and that was one I was missing, so I jumped on eBay and snapped that up. I also snapped up another later episode, and then so I realized there's only 2 left I need to get. So two of the I think it's the final 2 issues of the magazine. So we'll get through these in a few weeks. I'll most likely use 3djoes.com to give you the play-by-play of the final couple issues, because I don't know if I'll have them in hand. There was only one that I could find even listed on eBay, and it was a little more than I wanted to pay. But so it sounds like they were pretty scarce. So this issue, if you all remember it, or if you're unfamiliar with it, it's the one with the Dave Dorman painted cover of Lieutenant Falcon swinging onto a Cobra. I believe, yeah, that's the Cobra stun with Big Boa and Raptor. I mean, this whole cover, it's like just the character finds of 1987 come to life. I don't know how y'all feel about, well, I do know how you feel about Raptor. I think the general consensus on Falcon is we like him. Obviously, his classified face was jacked up. It was one of the funnier reveals at Comic-Con during the Hasbro panel when they know they screwed up that because they made a joke about the upcoming re-release of Falcon or one of the team releases, and they joked about his face. So they know what was up with his face. But Big Boa, I'm a fan, man. I know he was originally made or designed, at least, he's supposed to be the enemy to Rocky Balboa, and then they didn't do Rocky, and so I think he kind of faded into obscurity and all that stuff. But I don't see a lot of love for him, but I also don't see a ton of hate for him. I've always dug Big Boa. I think Cobra would need a boxing instructor, boxing / physical fitness type, gym training. They totally would use one more than a Raptor, right? And for the record, I love Raptor. We saw the pictures of the classified version, or actually they had a real one at San Diego. I think that figure is going to be great. I love Raptor as he was, old school and stupid. He was like a Batman villain, joined the G.I. Joe team. Well, joined Cobra, but joined the world of G.I. Joe. So I love Big Boa, and I think the figure they did recently too was really, really good. So to see these 3 on the cover, I think it just screams 87. It screams insanity. In fact, like you could kind of go Falcon normal, Big Boa kind of getting into that abnormal. Got a little bit of a Dreadnought vibe to him. I know he's not, but a little bit of the Dreadnought vibe with the spikes and the metal helmet, a little Road Warrior-esque, and then complete lunacy with Raptor. So they're all 3 are featured on this cover. It's awesome. This is also the magazine. This is also the poster that's inside of the magazine as well. So if you get your hands on this and you want a poster of this great Dave Dorman painting, that's what this is inside. So $1.95. Can G.I. Joe's in action? G.I. Joe's in action. Can they find Cobra's bomb? Dive for undersea treasures and fantastic first flights. So in the contents, we're treated to an image of Psych Out, another 1987 character sensation. I know He tears people apart. 87 was a tear apart people year. It was my last year, really, of collecting G.I. Joe. And I get it. It's controversial. So we've got all the features going up. We got the G.I. Joe story, which we're going to cover today. We got some stories about Lindbergh crossing the ocean, treasure hunting in Florida Keys. There's a Met. Who is that Met? Nah, it doesn't say on there. Wait, where is it? Mail call, on target, in action. It's got some more code breakers. So we get a little Lieutenant Falcon. Now, Lieutenant Falcon is the host of this month's magazine. Rustezi Man General Hawk has ordered me to brief you on this issue of G.I. Joe magazine. He's also asked me to welcome new members, some of whom are featured in the adventure story Goodbye Golden Gate. In this issue, you'll join treasure hunter Mel Fisher, who recently discovered a sunken ship with over $400 million in gold. They celebrate Charles Lindbergh. It was his 60th anniversary. That's what they were celebrating back in 87. So the 1927. Talking about movies and books that are out at the time. A Raging River adventure. Just a lot going on. They continue to have the instructions to the adults to remove the poster. Next page, we've got a Kool-Aid Coolers advertisement with a little kid named Sam. I'm going to be a pilot Hi, I'm Sam. I'm going to be a pilot someday. Flying is the only thing I want to do. It's a challenge like no other. I'm an expert at radio control planes, and I'll start flying lessons next year. I can't wait to get beyond the controls of my own plane. And after a successful mission, I always refuel with Kool-Aid Coolers juice drink. All right, Sam, you lived that life, man. I had a remote control airplane once. I was fascinated by it. That's one thing I've always been fascinated with, remote control airplanes and cars and stuff. I had a plane once. It was the kind that you hold on a string and it goes around in circles, and it was gas powered. You had to rip start it, and I got it up in the air once, didn't understand, never had done it before, so I had no idea. And I just remember the sensation that it was going so fast, and it probably was, but it probably wasn't really, but that it was going so fast. I had no control, no idea how to control. There was no learner's permit on this thing. And my airplane went straight up in the air, and it came straight down. And the nose cone broke off. Never found that. Ended up replacing it with a nose cone that was 2 sizes too large, but never really got around to fixing it. And never flew again. And it sat in the corner of my basement, haunting me for years, for a decade, better part of a decade, like until I graduated high school, like finally got rid of it. So I had a remote control airplane that survived approximately maybe 4 seconds of flight, maybe. Rest in peace. Mail call. We've got letters here from Jason Smith out of Ransom, Kentucky. Neil Lawrence out of Shelburne, Vermont. Matthew Coleman out of Kenmore, New York. His favorite Joes are Bazooka, Beachhead Alpine, and the new member, The Fridge, represent. Benjamin LeClaire, parts unknown. Scott Dalrymple from Easton, Pennsylvania. Billy Holbrook from Cucumber, West Virginia. And his favorite character is Quick Kick because, quote, he likes karate. And we've also got a pretty decent little drawing of a G.I. Joe Viper. Now, he obviously took it from the last issue's first cover by Chris Floudiatis. Wow, that's a name. Floudiatis. Floudiiotis. Flutis? He's from Evesham, Marlton, New Jersey. So, Chris, I apologize for what I just did to your name, but that's a mouthful. Anyway, he drew a Viper. Totally cribbed it from the cover from the previous issue, which we, hey, that's what I'm here for. I hope you guys checked out our YouTube page. I did some of that for our Cobra Convergence episode. We covered G.I. Joe 31, and we're going to have some news on that giveaway too. And remember, shoot me an email or tag me on social or DM me or something. Let me know if you're interested. We're going to probably pull the winner this week, and I'm going to give away the cover recreation of G.I. Joe 31. So next we've got an advertisement for Battle Beasts. I believe people have a lot of love for these dudes. They're pretty cool. They're very small. I'd never had any of them, but they, right. This is Rochambeau, but with toys. That's right. Right. That's kind of fun. So you never know what beast has what badge until you get it home. So you would buy these creatures and then their badge would be different. What I don't know about these is if, like, for example, this rhino, he's got a fire. Did all the rhinos have fire, or were there rhinos with fire? Were there rhinos with water, or were there rhinos with wood? Either way, that seems like a really fun gag. So Battle Beasts represent. We got a commercial for Outward Bound, which is advertisement rather, but which is we're seeing all these documentaries about these kids camps that were terrible to children. I wonder if Outward Bound got caught up in that. Now we're on Target. Next page, we got a profile on Mike Schmidt of the Phillies. True story. My toiletille Rebecca grew up in Dayton, Ohio, where Mike Schmidt's family is from. And I might get this a little wrong, but I believe Rebecca's mother, my mother-in-law, rest in peace, she passed, was Mike Schmidt's grandmother's nurse. If I'm getting all that details correct, if I get it a little wrong, I apologize. Yeah, and they were a big deal in Dayton, and they. So every time we see Mike Schmidt, I always say something to Rebecca, and she chuckles because Mike Schmidt, he's talent. He was in the I watched the Pete Rose documentary recently. He was interviewed in that too. We've also gotten exciting news because there is a new movie from the star of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, a movie called Project X, which if you know anything about me, you know I love apes and I love chimpanzees. And Project X was awesome. And it taught an ape, or a chimpanzee rather, how to fly. That was great. I was here for it. I love that movie. We also got promo for Batteries Not Included. They talk about Harry and the Hendersons. And, some after-school special, ABC specials. The next page, we talk about some reading thing. I like this. They want you to read. There's a book called The Freedom Force. It's a thrilling story of a group of teenagers who try to save the U.S. from alien invasion. That's fun. The Outside Shot. A kid trying to make it in big-time basketball. It includes some great hoops action. On the printed page, The Titanic, Lost and Found. The true story of the sinking of the unsinkable ship and how it was found with the help of high-tech robots and sea-searching sonar. I wonder if James Cameron read this and got inspired. And then it asks a question. Americans, have you ever ridden a camel? Of the people who said they had done something adventurous, 18% had gone on an African safari, 5% had flown a hang glider, and only 2% of Americans had ridden a camel. I've ridden a camel. I'm fairly positive that's the case. If my brain's not breaking, at a Ringling Brothers circus. Yeah, fairly positive I rode a camel at a circus once. I definitely know I rode an elephant, but I think there was a camel involved too. And I remember the elephant because that's straight out of Temple of Doom, and that's right up my alley. We also get an advertisement for the G.I. Joe magazine, 4 big issues for only $6.97. It's like $1 whatever savings. Not bad, everybody. This is neat. Their On Target section is all about Tony Hawk. So Tony Hawk from 40 years ago, close to 35 years ago. And he's still out there in the mainstream, except now he's selling old people supplements. But back in the day, this was Tony Hawk's time. At the moment, he was 3-time national champion Tony Hawk. He was performing a McTwist. That was his big move, if you guys remember that. But he's, he looks, well, can't really tell, because he's in motion, but yeah, he looks very young, especially compared to the joint supplement commercials that he's doing these days. Good for him, though. We've also got a story here about Chinese Little Leaguers who visited the United States. Last September, a team of Chinese Little Leaguers from the People's Republic visited the U.S. for the first time. Baseball is very popular in Asia, but these boys weren't familiar with some of the other American traditions. Hold on to your hats, everyone. They'd never eaten a hot dog. What? However, they played baseball very well. In a tournament of 7 cities, they defeated several American Little League. I'll kick them out. The Americans and Chinese boys got along very well, which should give certain politicians a hint about international friendship. G.I. Joe, 1987 Spring Magazine, throwing shade at Washington. I feel like the jugglers, they're looking right at you. Up next, we've got an ad for the Sales Leadership Club. You may not remember the name, but you know these ads. It's the prizes for cash. This is where if you got certain sales, you sold items, you would win some kind of janky something or other. You know these ads. It's in this case, it's a blue background, but it's got all these little comic book cartoon drawings of all these products that you could win or you could trade for. We'll send you a free sales album displaying quality all-occasion cards, notes, gift wrap, stationery, address books, recipe books. So you would sell those recipe books and wrapping paper and all that stuff to your families, and every item that you sold was counted. So you could trade those for, let's see, you could get a sewing machine. If you sold 39 items, you can get your own sewing machine. If you sold 69 items, you could get an RCA 12-inch TV. If you sold only 14 items, you can get speaking of chimps, Roscoe Chimpanzee Puppet. You could get a basketball for only 10 items, a nylon sports bag for only 8. You could get an AM, FM, technically not a Walkman, I guess, but a headset radio for only 15 items. Did anyone within earshot here, did anyone ever do these? We did them for school. This is how school would work, right? So you do fundraisers, and same thing, whether you were selling pop, and I know they still do it, just popcorn, or, I do remember we used to sell wrapping paper. And if you did enough, then you could win certain prizes or trade them in at the end of this session. But I never did one through these advertisements, but these ads were all over comic books at the time. So I'm wondering if anyone out there ever did anything like this. Please let me know how that went. Because it sounds like it just always felt like a huge, huge, huge scam. But, maybe it was legit. I mean, they ran a lot of ads, so I don't know. Maybe it was legit. We've now got a 2-page advertisement on whitewater rafting. That's fun. Talking about people who, they put on some helmets, they go on down some rafts and rivers, using kayaks. We now get the G.I. Joe story at the Golden Gate Bridge. It looks like we're getting some Psych Out, some Crazy Legs, Crocmaster action, and Falcon and Chuckles. The next page, we got an ad for Pineapple, which I believe they were in the last one too. And they've got, one of the things they do are Fatheads, and I remember these. They're not Mad Balls. They're like off-brand Mad Balls. But we had some Fatheads, and maybe we got them from like carnivals or something. It says that they grow to many times their size when placed in water. I feel like we had some of these. But you remember Mad Balls, the little like baseball-looking things, but they had stupid, silly faces on it, very much like Garbage Pail Kids. Well, this is the same thing, but with shrinking heads and off-brand. So here we go. It's a 2-page spread. First across, talking about Lucky Lindy. It does not say anything about his association with the Nazi Party. I feel like G.I. Joe the magazine, you let us down. But this article is neat. It covers the history of air travel. So it talks about, like, in 1919, talking about the first dirigible to cross the Atlantic. talking about the first balloons that crossed the Atlantic in 1978, like a hot air balloon. In the year 1001, historians believe that the Vikings were the first to sail across the Atlantic. Again, this is data as of 1987. Who knows? That could be completely wrong by now. Although I know that they still believe it was Vikings, but I don't know year-wise. That might have changed. So kids, don't take this. Don't go into your social studies class next week and be like, "Hey, I heard on Joe." You're gonna be wrong, but you can't say I heard on Joe that Lindbergh was a Nazi. Helicopters on 6:05 a.m. on May 31st, 1967, two Sikorsky helicopters took off from Brooklyn. And 30 hours and 46 minutes later, they landed in Paris. I had no idea that helicopters could make a transatlantic flight. That's crazy. They couldn't carry enough. They couldn't carry enough fuel. They had to refuel in air, though. Okay, that makes more sense to me. But still, they refueled in air 9 times. That would be how it would count, because I guess if they landed, it wouldn't be a complete flight. So 9 times nine times. Each helicopter had 3 pilots, and they worked on 2-hour shifts. 2 hours of piloting, 2 hours of co-piloting, and 2 hours of sleep. Awesome. And then we talk about dirigibles, and then we talk about 1927 Lindbergh. So we've got another advertisement, a lot of advertisements for other magazines in here. But that's how you pay. That's how you pay for the magazines. This is for the Big Book of Games. Now we've got a story here about treasure hunter Mel Fisher, where he found $400 million under the ocean. Trapped in the skeletal remains of what were once majestic trading ships, I'm sure with absolutely stolen goods from people who didn't want to give up their gold. But he found them. And I'm certainly not blaming Mel Fisher for finding them. His most publicized find was the Nuestra Senora de Atocha, which is the Our Lady of Atocha, a Spanish treasure galleon loaded down with riches from the New World that sailed into hurricane-strength winds while heading home in 1622. The storm sank off of what is today known as the Florida Keys. So he looked for 16 years for this ship. He discovered the sister ship, the Margarita, but he also he discovered the Margarita, but he also found the mother lode, or the main body of the Atocha, scattered over 10.5 miles of ocean. A booty of 3,200 emeralds, Jesus, 150,000 silver coins, and more than 1,000 silver bars that average 85 pounds each. And still, Fisher's sons continue to search the remains, while Fisher himself is like, I got enough out of this. You guys get my scraps. I'm going to go look for something else. Well, that's crazy. Guys from Glen Park, Indiana. Wow, that's yeah. I feel like the era of this is almost like that was it. That was the meat. 80s were like the meat era of randos finding sunken treasures. I feel like a lot of that is now either done by professionals, like corporations, kind of a thing, or they've just found everything. We've now got our code breakers. It says, when a mine collapsed in the high Andes, the Peruvian government called on the G.I. Joes to rescue the trapped miners. Tunnel Rat led the way on his rescue mission, commanding 10 other Joes. So you got to fit the names of the rescue workers into the grid below. There's only one right place for each Joe. So we're not going to cover the results here because it doesn't make any sense. This is an audio podcast. But basically, it's a fun little puzzle. Now, the next page is awesome. It's something very much like how I talked about the Tomax Zaymot card back tickled a memory. This tickled something I wasn't aware of. And it's one of the things that I loved about this hobby, this podcast, this whatever, is finding new stuff about the history of G.I. Joe, or what have you. I had no idea, or if I did, I totally forgot that they did official G.I. Joe battle ribbons. You can wear the same battle ribbons worn by the Joe team. You get a free battle ribbon inside every specially marked G.I. Joe package. I had stopped collecting at this time. So if I had any of these, I have no recollection of it. Plus, you get the official G.I. Joe decorations manual featuring all 10 battle ribbons and the honors they represent. Each ribbon is exactly like the one Hawk awards to the Joe team. Wear the ribbon, Battle of Springfield, Hindu Kush, Medal of Honor. And, I mean, that's awesome. And there's also an ad to join the G.I. Joe ribbon. So, like, they've got the Medal of Honor, the G.I. Joe Medal of Honor, the G.I. Joe Distinguished Service Medal, the Cobra Island Campaign Medal, which is like, my brain explodes how awesome that would be, the Battle of Springfield Medal, the Strategic Air Command Medal, which actually looks pretty sweet. It's got a Zot style lightning bolt across the front. The Sierra Gordo Campaign Medal, like this Sierra Gordo, they did medals for Sierra Gordo. The Battle of Fort Wadsworth medals. I mean, all this stuff straight out of the comics. The Hindu Kush Mountain Campaign. I don't remember what the Hindu Kush campaign would have been, but it sounds awesome. The Space Command Medal obviously ties in with the space shuttle, the Joe's space adventures. The only thing I can think of is Devastator. That's not it. Defiant. And the Gulf of Mexico Cobra Island Conflict Medal. That's the one that captured my imagination. Because what better adventure in the comics than the Cobra Island, right? The raising of Cobra Island. You can get medals for this stuff. That's awesome. I went on eBay. $30 a piece these are going for. 30 to 40, depends. But minimums I saw were 30. I gotta tell you, just like the file card, my brain was triggered. So heads up, true believers, if you're out there and you've got your ribbons you want to sell, send me the link. So we finally end it with some secret intelligence files on basketball and a Muppet Magazine advertisement. And then we've got a page on being a smoke jumper, which is firefighter in the forest. So that's pretty neat. Talking about fire lines and how to put out, fires in the forest. That's kind of neat. And then we have another ad here for the prizes for cash. It was Olympic. That was the name of the company. I missed that on the other one. But Olympic prizes or cash. Another one of the sell a bunch of items. Is it this? Wait a minute. Is it the same? Or is it? Did we have two competing sell a bunch of items ads in here? Why do I think that's different? I'm gonna go back in real time, everybody. We're gonna go back and double check this. They look very similar because they were essentially the same thing. Sales Leadership Club and Olympic was called Olympic. They're different. They were different. Okay, I remembered the Olympic one because that was the one with the superhero logo. But they're totally different. And Olympic had the young lady with like the earpiece on and a little weird crown. Said, ask for Janet. She or another Captain O operator, is waiting to rush your name and address and zip code to us. Blah, blah, blah. Totally the same scam. Same products. You can get a 2-man boat kit for 20 items. Same kind of stuff, but a different competing company. And they're even using the same color schemes. That's why I'm confused here, because it's blue background, yellow fonts. Wow, that's cool. That's funny. You can get CBS records or tapes for 8 items. Looks like you can get Thriller. And is that a Van Halen album? Nope. Earth, Wind, and Fire. That's exciting. Anyway, so yeah, they're really trying to squeeze the rent out of you guys. So that's it for GI. That's the body of Spring '87. We're gonna go back and read the story now, but that's exciting. It's a fun little magazine. I'm gonna say this. So as we're working our way through this stuff, it's very G.I. Joe themed, but it's not very G.I. Joe, and I think maybe that's why it never really, stuck the landing. But that's what these magazines were at the time. This was a total cookie cutter of, what's the one, the Goofus and Gallant, the one that was always in your doctor's office. Highlights, Very much like that. So I think it works. I would say it maybe these might have had a little longer legs if there was just more G.I. Joe content in it, you know? Like, how about an article here you go. An article every issue with one of the G.I. Joe creators. That kind of breaks the kayfabe of it being an article or a magazine published by G.I. Joe, which is also neat, and I recognize that. But that might have been cool. That might have been inspired more people to kind of get behind it. But who knows? Maybe it was super massive successful and they just stopped printing. Anyway, Goodbye Golden Gate, and this is again by the Stein writing team, the H.L. Stein writing team, Megan Stein and H.W.M. William Stein. So the Goosebumps crew. Goodbye Golden Gate. The Joes fight the clock to find a Cobra bomb. Everything looked normal. Thousands of people were driving over San Francisco's famous Golden Gate Bridge. It was just like any other Friday afternoon rush hour. Some people were in their homes in Marin County. I'm laughing because we were up there recently and I just kept calling it Marin County. Marin? It's Marin. And I kept calling it wrong. And every time I did, Toilet Teal would laugh at me. And she would call me a Midwesterner. And I would say, shh, I don't know. Anyway, others were coming into the city for an evening of cable cars, seafood, and sourdough bread. Not one of the commuters even suspected that he or she might be headed for a date with disaster in the watery depths of the ocean beneath the Golden Gate Bridge. I assume every time I'm crossing the Golden Gate Bridge, I got to assume someone's going to attack it, whether it's Magneto, in this case Cobra, the people from The Rock. Someone's going to attack the Golden Gate Bridge. Everything looked so normal, unless you look closely. For instance, the man in the toll booth at the southern end of the bridge looked like a toll guard, but he was really Green Beret and G.I. Joe mission leader, Lieutenant Falcon, in disguise. At the north end of the bridge, Roadblock and Psych Out were disguised as tourists. They seemed to be enjoying the view from a scenic overlook. Overhead, in a radio station's traffic helicopter, was a G.I. Joe assault trooper codenamed Crazy Legs. Under the bridge, there was an old, quote-unquote, old man in a fishing boat who was really Wetsuit. And the guy climbing the girders of the bridge in overalls looked just like another workman checking for rust, but really was fast draw. And he was checking for something much more damaging. ... A bomb. Why does Cobra want to blow up the Golden Gate Bridge, Wetsuit asked by radio from his fishing boat. He had been the last to arrive, and he wasn't completely briefed on this mission. I like that explanation of why does one member of your team have no idea what they're doing there? For the same reason other men climb mountains, Roadblock answered, speaking into the miniature transmitter in his tourist binoculars. Because it's there. Lieutenant Falcon snarled into his radio in the toll booth. Keep your eyes open, Wetsuit, or this mission will blow up in your face, he said. And Wetsuit knew it was true. The worst part of a mission like this was that no one knew where the Cobra attack would come from. Falcon's face grew tighter as a black station wagon pulled up to his toll booth. The handsome young driver with wavy blonde hair handed Falcon a rolled-up $20 bill. Keep the change and have a nice day, the smiling driver said. Falcon quickly spoke into his radio. Cease random surveillance. What's up? Crazy Legs asked from his helicopter. Chuckles just drove through my toll booth, Falcon said. You know that guy's been deep undercover in Cobra so long, he probably qualifies for their retirement pension, Fast Raw said. Get to the point, Falcon, Roadblock radioed. Did he wrap Cobra's plans in a $20 bill, or didn't he? The whole team anxiously awaited the message. Falcon unrolled a slip of paper folded into the $20 bill. Then he read the message from the Joe's undercover agent into his radio. During rush hour today, Cobra will drive a car loaded with explosives onto the bridge. The plan? To abandon that car and detonate the explosives by remote control. They couldn't try to blow the bridge at midnight. They had to wait till it was filled with innocent commuters, Crazy Legs said angrily. These reptiles are worse than teeth scum. Like Mindbender. It's a Mindbender line. It doesn't matter when they try to do it, Roadblock said. We're always open for business to stop them. But which car? Wetsuit said from below the bridge. Chuckles didn't tell us what kind of car. Gentlemen, that's all we're going to get, Falcon said. I suggest we keep our mouths shut and our eyes open. The radios fell silent as the traffic grew thicker, and Leon grew larger. Back and forth across the bridge, and the Joe team watched. It's 17:30 hours. Do you know where your snakes are? Psych-Out said into the radio transmitter hidden in the Instamatic camera around his neck. Something's crawling under the bridge, and it looks like cobras to me, Fastraw said from his vantage point above. Crazy Legs was airborne in seconds, parachuting out of the traffic copter with gun cocked and already warm in his hands. I see it, but I don't believe it, Crazy Legs said. At the base of the bridge pilings, there's a man dumping crocodiles into the water, and they're headed straight for Wetsuit. It's Crocmaster, Falcon shouted. Turn that cobra skin reptile into a handbag. Okay, Crocmaster, let's see if you can follow my tempo for a variation on your main theme of destructions, Crazy Leg said. Crazy Legs spoke in musical terms, but his machine gun made music in a totally different way. The gun battle beneath the bridge went unnoticed on top, drowned out by the wind and the traffic noise. That's awesome. There was nothing that... So they didn't... So, wait. Let's unpack this. No one on the bridge noticed a parachuting man out of a helicopter firing... did they say what kind of gun? An Uzi? Basically, a warm... His gun. A warm gun shooting. And also, Crocmaster's crocodiles. Are crocodiles... Aren't they freshwater? What would they be like? Can they rocket in salt water? Because isn't the bay, that's the ocean? Anyway, these are the things I talk about. Anyway, we're approaching a tow truck parked near. Let's see. Wait. Oh, there was nothing the Joe team could do but wait anxiously for Crazy Legs or Wetsuit to report back, while they stayed put, scanning everything on four wheels that try to cross the bridge. We're approaching a tow truck parked near the north entrance to the bridge, Roadblock and Psych-Out reported. But the tow truck checked out. It had a permit to park there every day, waiting to assist stalled cars on the bridge. Cobra's got to come from the north, Psych-Out said, since there are no toll booths up there. They won't risk coming through the toll booth on your end, Falcon. Affirmative, Falcon said, so keep your eyes open. Hold it, we've got something, Fastraw interrupted from above. White Mercedes with California plates on the back heading south. It's locked up in the traffic at the toll plaza and someone's getting out. Let's hit it, Falcon shouted, giving the signal to stop all northbound traffic, while Roadblock and Psych-Out stopped all the southbound cars. Suddenly, the driver of the Mercedes ran from his car to the side of the bridge. He was a tall man, covered in feathers and wearing a hideous falcon mask over his head. It was the Cobra Falconer Raptor. He spread his winged arms and leapt from the bridge. We've got the pigeon in sight, Crazy Legs announced. You guys get that car while Wetsuit and I pluck his feathers. The two Joe buddies fired from the base of the bridge and from the water, but Raptor evaded them and floated down into a waiting jet-powered boat which took off into the bay. I feel like we didn't follow up with the gunplay with the crocodiles. Like, what happened there? Meanwhile, the rest of the Joe team converged on the abandoned Mercedes. From above, Fastraw fired special foaming missiles from his body launcher. He was trying to cover the car with foam that would smother the explosion. The others rushed to the car, running between and sometimes over the tops of the other commuters nearby. No tolls, just move them through, Falcon shouted over a bullhorn, ordering motorists to drive out of the way. But in the panic, people were simply leaving their cars and running in every direction. It could blow any second, Roadblock shouted. Psych-Out took one look at the Mercedes and started running the other way, back to the north entrance of the bridge. Are you crazy, soldier? Falcon shouted. Get back here. Well, Psych-Out ran like a lunatic Carl Lewis. When he reached the north end of the bridge, which is quite far, ladies and gentlemen, he leaped into the empty tow truck, which was still parked near the entrance. He revved the engine, floored the gas pedal, and turned the truck around. The truck jolted toward the guardrail of the scenic overlook just before it zoomed over the edge. On its plunge toward the water, Psych-Out bailed out onto the pavement. Halfway down in midair, the tow truck exploded. When the Joe team reached Psych-Out, he was wearing a few new decorations, some cuts and scrapes from bouncing out of the time bomb truck. Well, how did you know it was the truck? Wetsuit asked Psych-Out. Well, simple, Fastraw answered. He must have psyched out the Cobra mentality. Psych-Out smiled. Well, to tell you the truth, guys, I didn't use psychology at all, he said. I did what Lieutenant Falcon said. I kept my eyes open. In California, cars have to have 2 license plates, Psych-Out said. I noticed that the tow truck had only 1. At first glance, I figured that the other plate had just fallen off. Then I saw the plate on the back of the Mercedes. It was number 400 MEL. Well, that's the same plate That was on the truck, Roadblock said. Right, Psychout said. Cobra stole one set of plates from some car. They used one plate on the truck, the other on the Mercedes. When I saw that the plate numbers were the same, I realized the truck was a Cobra vehicle too. The Mercedes was a decoy. Cobra wanted us to find it. There's still one piece of the puzzle missing, Lieutenant Falcon said. Where's Chuckles? He was supposed to rendezvous with us after the mission. Lieutenant Falcon, said Psychout, having read Chuckles' personality files, I think I can predict his whereabouts. The Psychout led them to San Francisco's Candlestick Park, where the Giants were playing the Houston Astros. But after watching 9 innings, the Joe team concluded that Chuckles was not at the game. So they returned to base, where they found Chuckles. He had been at the opera. Hey, I thought you were good at this mental second-guessing thing, Lieutenant Falcon said to Psychout. Well, I am, Psychout said. If I had told you that Chuckles was at the opera, would you have still let us go to Candlestick Park? He asked. And everybody laughed. The man hadn't earned his name for nothing. There's a lot to like there. I like the Psychout stuff. That's fun. The same license plate gag is fun. Although, once again, Cobra's plans are getting stymied because they're cheap. You just got to steal 2 sets of plates. Come on. Also, Psychout, how did you know which one was the decoy? Because, yeah, I guess showing the guy jump out of the car, or it was Raptor, jump out of the car. No one jumped. Like, who got out of the tow truck? You know what I'm saying? How do you know which one was which? Maybe they both were. That's the thing. Cobra should have planned ahead. They both should have been blobs. 2, 3, or 4, wherever point we're on right now. Crocodiles. What's up? What happened to Crocmaster? He was under that bridge. Did Crazy Legs kill Crocmaster? Or did the crocodiles get into the salt water and they died themselves because Crocmaster didn't realize they couldn't handle salt water? I don't know the answer to that. But it was a fun, enjoyable short story, and I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Joe on Joe Illustrated. I'll be here and back next week for who knows what I'll decide to do. Probably another episode of the magazine, but you never know. So I appreciate all of you for listening very, very much. And now you, Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.